I was principal at the high school, and I had a student who was very good in band, top 10 student academically, and would have never guessed that this student was wrestling with anything. His survey came up red. We get red, yellows, and greens. It came up red. That gave me the opportunity to go to him and just check in on him, see how he was doing, and kind of put an arm on his shoulder and say, it's okay. Anything I can do to help. I never would have been able to make that connection with that student. Those students fly under the radar. There's students that we can look at and we know, hey, something's not right. But there are
Right.
also students that we don't know. iWellness has helped us in that capacity to be able to hone in on all of our students. And so with this program, they take the survey. If it comes back green or yellow, we kind of monitor. If it comes back red, it's not, the questions aren't serious to where, we're concerned about self-harm or anything like that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my guest today is Jim Kitchen. Jim is the Deputy Superintendent at Swartz Creek Community Schools, which is in Swartz Creek, Michigan. Wow, say that 5 times fast, Jim. Jim, it's great to have you here today.
Well, it is great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. Love the work that you're doing, and it really is a privilege to be a part of something great like this. So thank you for
Awesome.
highlighting us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell us a little bit, Jim, about your role as Deputy Superintendent and a little bit about Swartz Creek.
All right, for sure. We are a suburb of Flint. We have about 3,500 students. My background, I was a teacher in Detroit Public Schools for 8 years. I went to Fowlerville Community Schools, which is very rural, as a principal, and then came to Swartz Creek. So I have a kind of the distinct privilege of seeing rural and urban and suburban
Yeah.
districts, as well as I had being a principal of an elementary building and then also of the high school. And then now for 3 years, I've been deputy superintendent, a position that I never pursued, never thought would happen for me, especially. But in each scenario, when I was a teacher, I wanted to make decisions that impacted more students. So I became a principal. And
Nice.
likewise, when the opportunity presented itself here, there's such strong beliefs that I have as an educator that I wanted to be able to impact kind of a multitude of students. And so that's why I'm in the seat that I am today.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that. And that's, Brighter Together is about exactly that,
Yes.
highlighting people like you that are doing amazing things in education. And I love the fact that, you're putting people before everything else. And that is so servant leadership. We are all servants. And I see that. And that's so exciting. Before we went on, you were telling me a little bit about some other things that you were doing specifically along those same line, which was trauma-informed care. Now, is this something that came out of the pandemic? And can you tell us some more about this program?
Yes, trying to get my thoughts together around such a big concept that we've undertaken here. Obviously, I went into education. There was somebody in my life, coming from a kind of a poor background in Columbus, Ohio, that had a bigger vision for my life than I had for myself. And so that really prompted me to be a teacher. I wanted that. I wanted to be able to be that for someone. And so, in this position, I help with professional development and leading our principal meetings and coaching our principals. That's probably the biggest piece of my job. The most fun job, the most impactful piece is what we're going to talk about today, and it's this idea of trauma-informed care. Yes, it did. It really spawned after COVID really, I guess, was the thrusters for this. Even though we were kind of in discussions about what we need to do, we're always looking at data with students, mostly academic or, attendance data. Rarely
Hmm.
did we look at, the things that are impacting students when they come to school. And trauma-informed care really kind of encapsulates where we are. The APA has identified mental health as a national emergency in our country.
Yeah.
And so us being really pioneers in Swartz Creek about really wanting to understand what our kids are going through and how we can best match our instruction with the background that they bring to us is very important. So we have adopted trauma-informed practices as our school improvement plan, as a big piece of our plan. And basically, the big piece of that, we call them ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. And the research says that the more of these adverse childhood experiences, things like abuse or neglect or really being poor, seeing violence in the home or those kind of those things add up in a child's life. And if a student gets 2 or 3 of those, then really the outlook on what their life could be it's really kind of bleak, and so our goal is to try to identify some of these adverse childhood experiences with students and then put practices in place to help support them so that they overcome and they don't become a statistic as a result of them.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So how do you identify that? What
That
kind of things do you have in place to identify those?
that is a great question. We have teamed recently with an organization called iWellness. This has really been kind of life-changing for us in this capacity. So iWellness is a simple thing. It's basically a survey that we give to all 3,500 of our students. Well, we don't with our kindergarten and first grade students, but when you are in third grade through 12th grade, then every other week we send us a quick survey. It's 7 questions, basically asking students how you feel today. Can you do hard things? Do you have an adult that you can connect with? Are you feeling success? It's just 7 very simple questions that kind of let us know where students are. It's almost like within 5 minutes, I can ask 3,500 people, "Hey, how are you doing?" And,
Mhm.
when we first started this, I was wondering, I was skeptical about the impact it could make. And an interesting thing that happened to me that made me just gung ho about trauma-informed care and eye wellness. I was principal at the high school, and I had a student who was very good in band, top 10 student academically, and would have never guessed that this student was wrestling with anything. His survey came up red. We get red, yellows, and greens. It came up red. That gave me the opportunity to go to him and just check in on him, see how he was doing, and kind of put an arm on his shoulder and say, it's okay. Anything I can do to help. I never would have been able to make that connection
Mhm.
with that student. Those students fly under the radar. There's students that we can look at and we know, hey, something's not right. But there are
Right.
also students that we don't know. iWellness has helped us in that capacity to be able to hone in on all of our students. And so with this program, they take the survey. If it comes back green or yellow, we kind of monitor. If it comes back red, I mean, it's not the questions aren't serious to where, we're concerned about self-harm or anything like that. So a red would be a check-in. If you get a couple of reds, then we start being a little bit more intensive with checking in on the students. But this has really been helpful to us to help us to better know and understand our students. And
Yeah.
so it really has just been, for me, it's brought so much more joy to my work, knowing that we're embracing something like this where we can really get in there and help students be successful.
Yeah, it's so many people are suffering in silence, and this is a way for them to reach out,
That's
you
right.
know, and ask for help in a way that's non-threatening, right? It's just yeah, that's fantastic. So like financially, tell us a little bit about because that's it's a big one. How do you absorb something in that and the cost of that and what other things like if someone else is interested in this, I'm talking now about okay, someone heard this and went, "Oh, that sounds great, but what did it cost?" Right?
Yeah, and sadly, that is a big consideration that we have to take into account. Before I say about the cost, it has to go back to the vision and the desire to
Yeah.
want to be able to make a difference in this aspect. I mean, you've got to believe in this. If
Right.
not, then it'll probably be too expensive. And I can give you an example. My superintendent currently, his name is Rod Heatherton. He has been just a visionary for our district. He grew up here. He graduated from here. He's now in charge. We were both principals. I was at Elms Road Elementary. He was at Morris Elementary, and we would all, we were pretty competitive at the time. But we had
Yeah.
conversations about, if we were superintendent, what would we do? When he was at the elementary school, 15 years ago, he was making those comments like, we need a social worker in all of our buildings. We need instructional coaches. We need student success professionals. He was saying this stuff way ahead of its time. Then he got into this position. He was actually deputy superintendent. I was at the high school as principal. And as soon as our former superintendent left, he applied, got the job. Within the first couple of months, he made the changes that he had talked about so much earlier. All of our buildings have social work support. All of our buildings have instructional coaches. They have student success professionals. So that's expensive.
Yeah.
If you invest like that. Now, if you're just looking at a program to understand, iWellness is not that expensive. It can give you the information you need, but then you have to determine what you're going to do with it
Mm.
once you gather the
Right.
data. And so we have really lifelines within our building, these people who check in on students and they provide strategies to help support. Probably our biggest highlight, and Rod, our superintendent, and I had the opportunity to go and speak about this at a local health symposium. We have a hub at our high school. That hub is just a big room that has all of our resources together, our teacher consultants, our social workers, student success personnel, our attendance person. We have a behavior coach in there. They're all there. There's punching bags in there and there's
Oh, neat.
couches in there. And so when students need a break, it's a place to go and there's support there that can help. So when you say the cost, It depends on how elaborate you wanna be. My
Right.
superintendent believes in this. My superintendent has a vision for this, and so he was able to use grants and funds to make this happen. And so
Right.
I would love the opportunity if there are listeners who want to know more about it, would love the opportunity to share our path and then also what we believe they could do to incorporate this within their structure.
So I love that you're willing to do that because we had another guest back in April. Her name is Allie Olin, and she was the director of student support services at Jersey City Community Charter. I'm looking at my notes. And they had a Ready Set Go program that she developed, and it's about dealing with K-3 and getting them ready for school because they're pandemic babies, you know. So same kind of thing. So be prepared
Yes.
that you're making that offer. You probably will get some people that will come your way through
Yeah.
this podcast. So I
I tell
love
you.
that we can do that, though.
Yeah, and we would love that too. I mean, again, I'm in this position because I want to make an impact. I'm at the end of my career. And so if I could help in any way to coach or send someone on a journey like we've gone on, to help support kids with trauma, we can't ignore it anymore. And,
Hmm.
these kids are coming with this baggage, whether we know it or not. And
Right.
it's in our best interest to find a way to know it so that we can
Hmm.
support and put practices in place. Lead with like the ethic of care instead of the ethic of justice. It's not one size fits all for everybody. Let's know where this kid is and be able to reach out to them the best that we can. That's where we are. That's what we believe in at Swartz Creek. And I would love the opportunity to share that with anyone who is in contact with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Because I've said this multiple times in this podcast, kids don't come to be bad. They don't want to be bad. You know, they're not planning on being bad. They just are reacting to the situation that they find themselves in. And if we can get them to a place, which it sounds like you guys are doing, to where because they can't even learn. They can't even focus to learn when they're in a reacting to a trauma situation. So I'm assuming, and this is that there has been positive you guys have seen, obviously. Can you give us a little bit of that? Like what kinds of positive things overall have you seen? Like and maybe it's a numbers, maybe it's a story. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
asking.
We're in our second year of implementation of this, so we are expecting to see great results even beyond this. But we have had, like I can tell you, even from last year to this year, the number of reds that are coming in has drastically diminished. Our resources are making great contacts with students. You mentioned something there that triggered a thought with me also. Behavior is purposeful,
Hmm.
and whereas, if there's a behavior that's egregious, you've got to address it with discipline. And I always tell people that, the root word of discipline is disciple. Disciple
Hmm.
means to teach. And so we want to take all of these situations to help teach kids in this situation. But when their behavior is trying to say something to us, and that's part of being trauma informed is getting to the root cause of why these behaviors might be taking place. But yeah, we
Yeah.
have seen good results so far. Our school improvement goal with this is for 5 years. So we're hoping every year that we continue to make good connections. And, if we've helped even a few students come off of a negative path, that, in my opinion, will be very worthwhile.
You've probably saved a child's life.
We may never know, but I think
Yeah.
that the evidence is there that good work is taking place with our staff.
Yeah, that chokes me up. It really does because there were so many reports of kids that were committing suicide after, being home and at the pandemic and, these rates that were just so horrible. And my son has experienced it in his life, 18 years old
Yeah,
and just, tragedies that should not have happened. And
I agree.
so, kudos to you guys. That's just really, um, it just really touches my heart because we want that for our kids. We
Yes.
want that. So, and I'm going to shift just a tiny bit. So you talked about starting at third grade versus 12th grade. Can you give me a little bit about what does the program look like for the elementary school versus what you're going to do in the middle school and the high school?
Yes. So basically, the reporting's the same. It's the same 7 questions. We're in conversations about, third grade. It would be great if we had like a smiley face, sad face, or the middle face, the medium face. But the program's the same. The same questions because really it's universal. I tell people like I've had the distinct privilege of being at all levels in school, from elementary to high school, and then suburb, rural. kids are universal. Trauma is
Mm.
universal. It doesn't matter if you're coming from a rich or poor family, there's trauma that exists in all those situations. So the resources are a little different. We have much more resources at the high school level. As mentioned, we have the hub, but very similar in our elementary buildings. They have social workers and we have student success coordinators and instructional coaches. So they're pretty stacked with those resources also, even at the early L.
Right. Right. Okay, fantastic. I love that we've been able to highlight this and what you're doing, and kudos to your team and your staff. It takes a village, as we know, but you guys have embraced it. And if you've embraced it, I know your staff has embraced it. So good kudos to them as well.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to pass along to my superintendent because it was amazing how his vision from 15 years ago is really kind of coming to fruition right now under his leadership. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. I have one other question that I ask everybody, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of moot at this point, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I always ask it. And you can't say money because everybody needs more money. There's never enough money, right, in the budgets. But if you could miraculously, and I say miraculously because I'm a Christian, I'm not into magic, no magic wands, there's no
That's right.
magic wands. But if God could come in and do one miraculous thing, that's how I feel about it, and solve one challenge in your school, the challenge that maybe it's a challenge we haven't talked about, maybe it's something that, is just at the top of your mind. What would you want to solve if you could just fix it? What would it be?
Great question. What has been highlighted in our data search? I guess there's two things that are a tie there, but a big piece would be, we are still like coming back from COVID with academic achievement. So the biggest piece would be our chronic absenteeism still remains a big
Yeah.
factor. And so we are constantly trying to brainstorm, come up with ideas within the things that we can control to improve attendance. The other thing is like this vape thing that is just
Mm,
taking over with our young people. And I believe that we have a lot of kids that are addicted to these things. Schools all across the country are looking at, discipline in these situations. I don't think that we're doing a good enough job with helping students overcome addiction to these things. But those
yeah.
two pieces, attendance would be huge for us. If we can get kids in school, then the innovations that we have will be much more impactful. And then if we
Can't
can
help
get
them if they're not there,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And these dangerous things that kids are embracing now, if we can get that away, it's just the world is not kind to our kids, that's for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. Certainly a different world from when you and I were coming up.
Absolutely.
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 Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
failed to mention, Janet, one thing when we're talking about trauma-informed care. This is a big piece, and this is just some new research that came out when you're talking about how do you impact. Do you know the one piece that came out as an evidence of being able to overcome the impact of trauma is hope?
Hmm.
All kinds of research. And so now it's shifting our thinking to we want to make sure that every kid is connected to a caring adult. We want to make sure that they have things that they can look forward to because those are the things that overcome the impacts of trauma in later life. I want to make sure I said that because
Oh, yeah.
we talk about the bleakness of trauma. Well, there is an opportunity to overcome that, and it's hope.
Yeah. And it's such a concept that we as humans, we live, and when you're healthy, you do have hope and you do look forward to things. And um and that's it. Also, when I talked about suicide, that's the lack of hope. That's where
That's
you just
right.
feel so helpless.
Yep.
And there's a whole thing out there, you are enough. I don't know if you've seen those t-shirts, but it just says, it's just a you are enough on the front, and on the back and I'm not going to be able to quote it, but it talks about, I care about you. I don't even know who you are. Person behind me, I don't know who you are, but you are loved and valued, and you have value. And again, I'm not going to be able to say it exactly, but it's just a t-shirt, And after my son lost his friend that committed suicide at 18, that was something I saw, and I bought one for him and I bought one for me, and I wear it. And every single time I wear that shirt out in public, somebody says something to me. That's a great shirt,
That's right.
because it's about hope. It's about taking care of human beings.
That's right.
We only have so much time on this earth, and what you and I do every single day matters, and we're impacting for the world in a way that we'll never know on
That's
this
right.
side of heaven.
That's
But
right.
boy, God loves what we're doing, and I'm so proud of you guys for what you're doing, and it just is amazing. So
No, we're
kudos.
blessed. We are blessed. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, Jem, Amazing conversation. Where should people go? You offered. So we're going to have you put your money where your mouth is,
All
right?
right.
Where do people go if they want to learn? They can always come through us. We will always make connections. But where should they go if they want to reach out to you about this program and learn more about your school?
If they will email me, would probably be the best. It's jkitchen@swcrk.org. jkitchen@swcrk.org. I would love the opportunity to talk to people about this journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much once
My
again.
privilege.
And I'll tell you, I'm so grateful that we have been able to highlight what you're doing on the Brighter Together podcast, because we really are brighter together.